They said the billionaire's wife had died in peace, her body resting in a silver coffin, surrounded by mourners dressed in black silk and diamonds. But just as the priest began to speak, the heavy doors creaked open. A woman in torn clothes, barefoot, her skin dark and weathered, stood trembling at the entrance. Gasps filled the air as she pointed toward the coffin and whispered, "She's not dead." No one believed her, not yet. But what came next would shatter every lie money had buried before. She became that woman at the funeral. She was invisible to the world. Her name was Amara, a name no one had spoken with kindness in years. Once a school teacher, once a wife, once someone who believed the world could still be fair. But life had stripped her down to a thin blanket and a park bench behind a city church. Every day she watched limousines glide past, people wrapped in wealth, never looking her way. She had learned to stay quiet, to survive without being seen. Yet on this cold morning, something felt different. The newspapers screamed the death of Eleanor Voss, the beloved wife of billionaire Richard Voss, a man who once smiled for cameras while funding charities that helped the poor. Amara had known Eleanor once, long before the mansions and the marble floors, back when both of them were just women, trying to build a life in a city that offered little mercy, especially to a black woman. When she saw the funeral announcement, her heart pounded with something she hadn't felt in years: urgency. Because Amara knew something no one else did. She had seen Eleanor only a week ago, alive, terrified, and begging for help. As the church bells tolled that morning, Amara wrapped herself in her tattered coat and began to walk toward the cemetery, not knowing that every step would drag her back into the world that once destroyed her. When Amara reached the cemetery, the world felt colder than she remembered. Marble gravestones gleamed under the gray sky, and the air smelled of roses and rain. She stood at the edge of the crowd, people in black suits, whispering as if grief had a price tag. No one noticed her at first, just another shadow in the distance. But when she stepped closer, their stares cut sharper than the wind. "Who let her in?" someone muttered. "She's not from here," another whispered. It wasn't just her clothes. It was her skin, her smell, her presence. In their world, she didn't belong. She walked toward the coffin, her eyes fixed on the polished silver lid. For a moment, she saw her reflection, broken, exhausted, unrecognizable. And beneath it, she saw Eleanor's face, pale and still. But Amara's chest tightened. Something about that stillness wasn't right. Memories flashed. The night in the alley, Eleanor's trembling hands, the bruise on her cheek, her whisper, "He'll kill me if I speak." Amara had tried to tell the police, but no one had listened. Who would believe a homeless, black woman with dirt on her face and truth on her tongue? Now standing in front of the world's most powerful man, she felt that same disbelief choking her again. Richard Voss stood near the coffin, surrounded by reporters and security. His expression was carved in stone, grief rehearsed, sorrow polished. When Amara's voice finally broke through the murmurs, it felt like thunder splitting the sky. "She's not dead!" The crowd froze. Cameras turned. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then came the laughter, the cruel, uneasy, the kind that hides fear behind disbelief. Security rushed forward, gripping her arms. "Get her out of here!" someone shouted. Amara fought to stay standing. "Look at her hands!" she cried. "They're warm. She's still breathing." But the guards dragged her back, and every plea fell into silence. The crowd turned away, pretending not to see the truth unfolding before them. As she was pushed out of the gate, she caught a glimpse of Eleanor's fingers, twitching. Just once, small, almost invisible, but Amara saw it. And that single movement became her reason to fight, because somewhere between the coffin and the cameras, a lie was being buried, and she was the only one willing to dig it up. They threw Amara to the ground outside the gates, her palms scraping against the gravel, her voice swallowed by murmurs inside the church. But something stronger than fear burned in her chest, the need to be heard. She pushed herself up, her knees trembling, and shouted again, her words trembling against the wind. "Check her pulse! She's not dead!" The guards hesitated, not out of mercy, but because cameras were still rolling. A few reporters turned, curious. One woman, younger, uncertain, stepped forward, whispering to a cameraman. The lens turned toward the commotion. Inside the church, Richard Voss stiffened. He had spent his entire life controlling narratives, the perfect marriage, the charity galas, the magazine covers. But now, a homeless black woman had cracked that porcelain mask. When one of the nurses reluctantly leaned over the coffin, the silence was unbearable. Seconds felt like hours. Then the nurse gasped, a soft sound, barely audible but enough to make the world stop. She's breathing. Chaos erupted. Gasps, screams, shouts. Reporters surged forward. Richard's face drained of color as he stepped back from the coffin, eyes wide, mask broken. Amara stumbled forward, tears streaking through the dirt on her face. "I told you," she whispered, her voice shaking with both pain and triumph. "I told you she wasn't dead." In that moment, everything changed. The cameras captured not just a miracle, but the ugly truth behind it. How easily a woman could be silenced, buried alive beneath wealth and lies. How quickly a black woman's voice could be dismissed as madness. As sirens wailed and medics rushed in, Amara collapsed to her knees. Around her, the same people who mocked her minutes ago now looked away, ashamed, speechless. But Amara didn't care for their eyes anymore. She had done what no one thought she could. She made the world listen. Hours later, the cemetery was almost empty. Reporters had vanished, sirens had faded, and only the echo of chaos remained. Amara sat beneath a tree at the edge of the graveyard, watching the horizon bleed into dusk. Her body ached, but her heart, for the first time in years, felt alive. Eleanor had been taken to the hospital. She lived, barely, and when the news broke, the world gasped in shock, calling it a miracle. But for Amara, it wasn't a miracle. It was proof that truth had to scream before anyone listened, especially when it came from someone like her. By nightfall, social media was flooded with headlines. Homeless black woman saves billionaire's wife from premature burial. Questions arise around Voss family scandal. For the first time, her face, tired, bruised, and tear-streaked, was seen. Yet even then, the comments beneath the posts told the same story she'd known all her life. Some called her a liar. Others mocked her skin, her voice, her pain. Because even when the truth stands tall, racism still whispers from the shadows. A week later, Eleanor sent for her, quietly, without cameras, without guards. She thanked Amara through trembling hands, tears filling the space between them. "You saved me," she said. "But I should have spoken when I still had a voice." Amara smiled softly. "Then speak now." When she left the hospital, the night air felt lighter. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. But she had reminded the world that worth doesn't come from wealth, and that even the silenced can shake the earth when they dare to speak. Because sometimes the dead don't return to warn us, the living do. And the question remains, how many truths are still buried? Just because no one listens to the black woman who speaks them?